All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 34.
It is a good day to be watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah.
Because we got spaceships or space stations blasting away at each other.
I'm having a ball with it. You know?
Yeah. A big old ball that's floating. Above the stars.
At this point, it's gotten. I'm having two balls with it.
Yeah.
Like it's getting nuts.
Wait a minute. They were approaching each other. It's almost like they're a pair of ham-on clackers. Now.
No. That implies some level of, where
Right, and then we'd be calling them knockers, which is a different thing.
Right.
I'm sure Bittenfeld would not have any problem with that. But
you could call the one
now.
holding them Fejanda, and then they would be kind of like clackers, So there is a little bit of a thing there. You were kind of on the right track, I think.
But Yang isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
But the Alliance is actually still doing pretty good, all things considered.
The Alliance has brought things to a neutral point via Mercats employing some very clever tactics against the, I would say, pretty decently clever tactics from Kempff and the Geiersberg Expeditionary Force. The problem is that Kempff is in an all-or-nothing strategy right now because I think if they try to retreat, they're a little bit worried about what will happen to Geiersberg.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it something where they might have to figure out a way to warp out safely, but they might also then be kind of underneath the boot of a certain youthful dictator when they return with less than optimal results.
And also, one of the biggest advantages they have in this is that the Alliance wasn't prepared for a fortress to come and assault them.
Right, so they kind of needed this surprise attack to be useful.
Right, because they don't have another Iserlon. So, and they don't want the Alliance to try doing what they did.
Oh, there's no way I think the Alliance will be able to, if it can be done, then we can do it too.
And even if they could, they want Iserlon to stay exactly where it is.
Right.
Right.
If anything, it could be kind of fun to see the Science Division equivalent on the Alliance's side, because then it shows some forward thinking, I guess, on their part.
We do kind of need progress, though.
But to be fair, they probably do have an equivalent. It's just not relevant for the story at this point because they are such a militaristic regime. There is that. They probably have, lots of developments,
specifically for military stuff.
But to keep up.
But Mercats is Chad, and even though the Empire did have some good, tactics for attacking, and I love the dynamic feel of the technology and the things that change with the it's got a liquid metal, outer shell to make breaches not be a problem. But that means tides for the armor are something to keep in mind.
Based on the gravitational pull of another planetoid-sized sphere.
Because you're not used to having a small moon just sort of float up and be like, hi,
it's a bit nutty. To be fair, in the Empire's favor, though, they have a lot more ships. And they have the capacity to continue to bombard Iserlon with it being something where if they keep bombarding, even if they fail and they have to leave before Geiersberg takes permanent damage as well, they could do some serious stuff to where then if Reinhard wants to take advantage of it before Iserlon can get repaired, this could be just the first wave. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Oh my god, this is total victory for the Alliance. They probably lost a minimal number of ships on Yang's fleet that he came here with. That was the ragtag group of security forces and stuff.
You done goofed up, Kempff.
But that was really cool, because what we saw there was superior forces getting outmaneuvered by a smaller fleet that then led to them being in an awkward place. They weren't losing necessarily. But I think one of the things that keeps getting brought up is that the space battles are almost entirely dictated by tactics. when it comes down to it, strategy is important, but the actual maneuverings of the fleets can lead to just utter destruction. Because it seems like on some level, the batteries of the ships don't have omnidirectional firing capabilities.
Right.
So if you're not able to, keep your nose pointed at the enemy, then bad things going to happen.
And unfortunately, with how they're set up, and it's something where on the one hand, there's parts of me where I'm like, wouldn't they just be able to like turn the ships and be in a formation where they could turn the ships and still be in a good formation where they'd be able to fire cleanly?
I think the assumption is that the ships all have pretty much the same kind of turning capabilities. So all they just do is, move with them, And and yet, because the show, I think, pacing-wise, doesn't want to get into that, in depth of a thing, it's something where they don't want to show too much counterplay on counterplay on counterplay.
Yeah, and it's something where because one, this is fiction, it's space, and all these things, and there's the limited amount of time that can be spent basically getting the audience to know all the details of the tactics and things like that. Then you go with more simple general things where it's easy to understand and digest, those diagrams with all the different polygons representing the fleets and how they're oriented and facing and maneuvering. Cool, awesome, great. And then have enough people basically sort of saying what's happening and why something is working or isn't working that we can follow along with it.
Right. Kempff showed quite a bit of maturity with regards to the fact that he was able to listen to Mueller's plan to adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
However, the idea that Julian and Yang had a near telepathic link, basically, with timing this because of the fact that Julian has spent all this time with Yang, he was able to be like, well, what would Yang do? Yang would do something like this.
Right.
It was basically the equivalent of having two Yangs, and just one was there for consultation, meaning they gave, Julian gave general strategy, which led to the tactics of Yang's being extremely effective.
Right.
Because the Geiersberg Expeditionary Force was not as large as I thought it was necessarily.
Because one of the things, and this is there are a couple things in this where, because we don't know too much about the details, when there are detail things that don't seem to add up, it's not too big of an issue because we don't know all the details, right? So there's a bunch of things potentially coming into play here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would have thought that you would want to have Mittermeier and Ruhenthal literally not far away at all. Like they're already there and they're just waiting, and then it's like, oh, okay, send in the reserve, but it's more just that we sent in one chunk of fleet, and then now we'll just come in and help polish this off.
Right. I guess, though, the other thing with regards to time is that this is all happening in minutes.
Right.
It doesn't matter, even if they were like a day away of jumping.
Right.
As opposed to being like what they are probably right now, which is they probably were sent, and they had been in transit for like a week by the time that this is coming up. But now we have a plot line, which I like that they're bringing it up this way, and that there were some failures on the Alliance side to properly communicate to all the fleet admirals why we're holding back a little bit. Then we wouldn't have Von Hue and the other one, Alarcon, going on the offensive and chasing down the Imperial remnants of the fleet, the Imperial remnant.
The one other thing that I thought was really cool here, and did give me a pause in a couple questions, was the whole idea of, yes, the way we stop it is we shoot one of the engines, right? So then it's they can't maneuver it properly, right?
Right.
Because this is a fragile setup that they have to be able to do something that they should not be able to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And because they're attached to it, it's like they're very easily exposed and have no protection, really.
Yep.
Other than the fleet, which is in retreat.
Right. Now, the fact that, the Geiersberg Fortress couldn't shoot the fleet down long before they were in range to be able to shoot the hyperdrive engines, okay, whatever. But it does have a good explanation of why if they had done that from the beginning, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah.
Because Iserlon is not a mobile fortress.
Yeah.
If they had just accelerated to ramming speed before like being in range, they could have then shut the engines off, and it wouldn't have been a problem. Right?
They would eventually run into.
They would eventually run into that. There's no drag in space other than like gravity, right?
Well, right, but even firing the Thor's hammer multiple times into it wouldn't be enough to stop it.
Yep.
It would just make it be a more fragile thing bumping into you.
Exactly.
But it still would do insane damage and probably destroy Iserlon.
Right.
Because it's just too much mass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that the Thor's hammer was able to blow it up at that timely thing, maybe it probably was because they also put the hyperdrive things on there, so maybe it was a bit more vulnerable or something.
No, I think it's entirely due to the proximity.
Oh.
Because the distance would have, I would say, some measure in effectiveness for the weapon.
Although the closer they are, that also means the more that, because of the gravitational pull thing, the more the armor would have consolidated to being in between them.
Maybe that's an Iserlon thing specifically, though. No, we know it's not. Nope, we know it's both.
Yeah.
It's both of them for sure. That's right.
That effect of when some of the mercury or whatever armor plating was blown off in like globules that just took ships out.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
That was
like,
legit.
That was awesome. Like, man.
That was pretty insane.
Oh, man.
I love to see that we got some political stuff in the midst of this as well. Mm-hmm. The commissioner from the Alliance, I believe this is.
Yep. And like, hey, what's up?
Why did you do this? This seems really suspicious.
It seems like you're, feeding info maybe on what we're doing to the Empire.
What's interesting, though, about Fejon's this new guy, what's his name here? Let me get.
Was it Kubersley?
Maybe
I'm totally wrong.
Might be, but I don't. I don't seem to remember.
Kesserling. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kesserling being one who is very, very manipulative in this point in the story. Because he's still kind of new to the whole thing here. He doesn't have necessarily, I would say, as much individual weight as someone like Rubinsky seems to have.
But the fact that he can, make little comments to Rubinsky means that, he might have more importance in this overall narrative than we would have originally thought.
Right, but he's no Reinhard. This is something where I'm trying to bring up the point that he has to use really underhanded verbal tactics in order to mess with the head of this Alliance politician diplomat here. Because what's interesting is he ends up saying, "Oh yeah, what do we do? The present Trunit administration or the Yang administration to follow?" It's like, dude, have you not realized he's using the same tactic as before?
Yep.
Like, he's still trying to make you basically end up having, doubts regarding your...
It's just straight up gaslighting at this point. Like,
well, I'm not sure if gaslighting is the proper word here, but the bit of him manipulating him to the point where he's saying, like, he's bringing up arguments that aren't even based in reality. He's just saying... So which of these administrations will we support? Right. And all this guy has to ask is saying, on what basis do you, make the point that the Yang is going to have an administration? And then he just has to let the guy lie. Let him lie and give him something false or something. But it's laughably funny to see politicians kind of go into this thing of where no that can't happen. It's like, no, of course it could happen. No one's saying that it can't happen, or no one's saying that it definitely will happen. It's this guy saying, hey, I see a possibility that it could happen. It's like, of course that could happen.
It's that plausible deniability sort of like, no, I'm just being practical. An asteroid
could hit the Earth in 100 years or something. We don't know these things. You don't know what you don't know.
And granted, because they don't necessarily know or really care to know Yang on a personal level as an individual, to make the question of, is he the kind of person that would do that? It's just the thing of, he's in a position of power that could potentially do this, and we saw this happen with Reinhardt.
Right, but I think that question is, you don't care about anything on that bit there, is you say, on some level, the Fejan Dominion is starting to get a little bit awkward with how they're maneuvering the political side of things to subvert the Alliance. At the very least, that is something that they're doing. Even if it's something that is, completely coincidental, the results speak for themselves.
Right. And
I think at this point, this is now just showing us the death track. Like, I'm already hearing the death rattle of the Alliance at this point.
Yep.
The fact that this situation was so poorly handled by the Alliance shows not, I would say, the competence of Kesserling necessarily, but I would say the fact that Kesserling is backed by something that is so terrifying to the Alliance at this point that the Alliance is already basically dead. It's just a question of, at this point, will the whole thing become a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Right. Yes, exactly. There's already been vultures circling, and they might also be doing things now, and the Alliance might be doing things now to accelerate the process.
Yeah, or at the very least, they're not doing anything that's slowing it down.
Not really.
And I think that the passage of time in this show with regards to kind of looking at history and seeing how cycles repeat, the reason why you had in the beginning of the story a coup within the Alliance is to set the stage for how unstable the governing body of the Alliance is, so that if Yang pulls basically the equivalent of a Caesar and seizes executive power for the purpose of protecting the Republic, oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that might be in the books now. I would love to see the world line where Yang quickly is put into that position and is frantically trying to delegate out.
Oh and get back out of it.
And get out of it.
That's one of the things that I could see happening with Yang if he's able to actually get to a place where someone else could take the reins, because
I'm not talking about like a person, but just delegating everything out. Just please get me out of here as fast as possible.
Right. But just even if it's not like a single person or anything, but a lot of other people, so that basically moving himself out of the dictator position and giving that up when he ever goes into that place. Yeah. Because that's something that doesn't really happen. And Yang as a person, his character is really good. So that I want him to have that chance to prove himself, to have it be something where it's given, hopefully, but more likely it's kind of taken for a little bit, but then he gives it back. Because that doesn't happen.
Well, right. But the idea of giving it back is something that has to be accepted, and also it has to be done in a way where it's not a ruling military body saying you're in power now.
Right. Yep, definitely.
So it's not even a thing of giving it back in the sense of, I took this from you, the Alliance, because the Alliance isn't a person.
No.
The Alliance is a representative of a bunch of groups deciding to work together.
Hopefully, you can't in the best case.
Right, but that's the thing. You can't say, I give power back to a nameless, faceless group. You need to actually then decide what kind of governing body would you have at that point.
Right.
And almost, no matter what he does, this is why I call it a problem. It's not a thing of just, I give it back. He's going to have to frantically figure out a way to actually figure out whether or not he wants to be even involved in deciding what kind of government gets to take over.
Yep.
Because if he has any say in it, that's him exercising his dictatorial powers at that point to be no, this is the best form of government.
Right.
This is the best type of people that should be involved at the top of that government.
It's a lot of the same stuff that Reinhardt's doing right now.
Except Reinhardt doesn't care about acting out his dictatorial power. That's the difference. Is that Yang will be in the catch-22 of needing to delegate frantically. I like to think that's the word that's going to fit it. He's going to be like, please.
Putting the railroad tracks in front of the thing.
But that's acting out dictatorial power.
Yes.
And I'm meaning how do you give away power when you're in a dictatorial spot without it being in and of itself an act of being a dictator?
Well, the giving of it out, that is almost definitely would end up being a dictatorial thing.
Right.
But hopefully it gets to a point where the train's moving, has slowed down enough, and you've put enough rails out in front of it that then you can give the tracks to somebody else, you know, or a bunch of other people and be like, all right, you take care of it now.
For sure.
You know?
I just realized we've been talking about this for a while. And it's my fault, but we haven't brought up actually the fact that how the actual battle happened in the episode. So, the fact that Kempff failed here, I think, is something that was foreshadowed rather well. We had tons of death flags for him with this whole thing. The act of trying to ram Geiersberg into Iserlohn, I'm glad that was something that they actually tried, because the idea that we came that close to this is pretty amazing.
Yep.
Now, the fact that it didn't work at all, but kind of left an awkward situation for the rest of the Empire's fleet where they're retreating, but you have a reinforcing fleet on the way that they're unaware of, and they're also being chased by 5,000 ships who can do probably quite a bit of damage in the meantime. Even if it's just a couple hundred ships that get, you know, taken out, you know, that's 250,000 people or something like that can get, you know,
there's like, oh man,
you know, killed.
I'm pretty sure that if the 5,000 ships managed to catch up, they could probably destroy all of the other ships that left. Like, because the Empire's forces were routed, they were destroyed. They that it's scraps that are leaving, right?
Right. I mean, they're not like probably less than half their number or anything. I could see the number being still around like 8,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because this is maybe the thing that I think is really tough to have shown here, is to constantly be spouting exposition about the casualties.
Right.
It's just not interesting television,
right.
I would say.
It's not interesting television, and yet how do you show... You can't show the numbers like visually very well because the numbers are so big. You don't see anything at that point.
That's why I think the tactics are more important than the actual numbers, is that they're using it primarily to be like, wait, how many ships does Yang have? Less than us. How many ships did Yang lose in the enactment of those tactics and strategies? It doesn't matter. Yang won.
Yep.
Now, in this case here, because they split the fleets entirely into different locations, then they're like, okay, now we'll tell you there's 5,000 ships that left.
Right.
Yeah, this is really awkward, but I love that Reinhardt and Oberstein kind of were like, oh, that's how bad things are. Or how bad they could be. Mittermeier, Ruhenthal, you're on your way. Go.
Yep.
What kind of engagement will this be then?
I don't know, because Iserlohn's there now, and they're kind of in the same situation they were in before, right? Where, like, other than
I'm talking about the fleets that are leaving Iserlohn.
Yeah, the fleets that are leaving. Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be almost wholesale slaughter for the 5,000 that left, unless Yang and Merkatz go after them, which seems like they might
already are.
Oh no, yeah, that's right.
They already are. Yeah, my thing is that we've got 4 positions here. We've got chasing Alliance fleet going after Mueller's remaining fleet.
Right, and then reinforcements on both sides trying to beat each other to catch up so that then they can help win the fight.
We don't know how long ago Reinhardt sent them out there, which means on some level they're going to get there whenever the plot decides they're going to get there. So Yang's group, if they end up having it be a thing where they're racing to catch up, but both fleets are moving at max speed, they will not get there before Mittermeier and Ruhenthal, because they're headed towards Mittermeier and Ruhenthal. Just the nature of that. Well, these forces are moving at the same speed going this way. They will never catch up until this force coming at this speed.
Right. Yeah. It's the algebra problem of, you know, a mother goose leaves the nest at, you know, flying at this speed, right? And then the baby geese or whatever, you know, like which one catches up with what, and when does the hunter get in range of, you know, So
such dumb story problems. I hated those in school. But hated them with a passion.
Oh, they suck.
Let me solve for X, damn it.
Yeah. But in this situation,
20 seconds.
like, because you know that the Imperial remnant
It's fun to say, isn't it?
It is fun to say.
Yeah.
Is gunning it full velocity, pedal to the metal. Let's get out of here because that was bad. And like the whole, like they had
especially once they realize they're being chased,
Right, the fact of them being chased, but then also, oh yeah, a lot of us had to kill some of our own friends potentially just to make sure that we got onto the escape ships.
Which some of them didn't even make it out.
Right, exactly. Like that was like, whoa.
What I thought was like incredible was that this whole thing happened. We don't know any of these people here, but this show has multiple moments where the scale drops back to show such magnificent displays of numbers and machinery and technology and all that stuff that we're like, whoa, it's no longer personal.
Right.
Then every once in a while, especially when the battles are over or ending, they zoom in all of a sudden on usually people we don't even know about.
Sure.
But the idea that Yang and all the people involved that survived on the Empire side are kind of like, we salute you. Like, well done. Thank you for offering up your life to lead us and do your work here. But Yang, you butchered their fleet. You tore apart Geiersburg.
Yep.
You won. And that's one of the dark aspects of winning in a battle like this, is that the fear that sets in when people are like, I do not want to be one of the ones that die here.
Right.
Well,
as a result of that, let's take our hats off for, the massive amount of people that must have died on Geiersburg.
The chunk of humanity over there,
right, that's just
getting melted away.
Yep.
Like that's kind of unnerving, to think about. Because on some level, you probably are proud of your men and your own tactical ability to win the battle.
Yep.
And yet, in that moment of elation, you're also getting the vibe of, oh, right.
And I'm glad that was brought up.
Tens of thousands are dying, minute by minute right now.
I'm glad that, you bring that up, because Yang's whole thing of, ramming the fortresses, you evacuate Geiersburg, sure. But that's still something where there's not going to be any prisoners of war from Iserlon if you do something like that, right?
Yep.
That's just everybody's dead. There might be a few people that manage to, because they'll start evacuating once they see the freaking thing coming towards them. But they won't
most will not get out.
Most will not get out, yeah. And
in fact, if they had actually succeeded here, I doubt 10% of Iserlon would have been able to get out in time.
Yep. If anything, the biggest benefit they would have had is that the fleets would have already been... The fleets had left, so, they would probably be okay, right? But
seriously.
But that's something where Yang was still okay with that, because... And in a lot of ways, that would have been potentially one of the best ways to resolve the situation from a total death count thing, because none of the people on their side would be dying. So, then from that standpoint, you're cutting it in half. It might be 100% or 90% of the other half, but at least you don't have that. But that's not like your bloodless capture of Iserlon.
No.
So
in some ways, it's also a fun, I would say, reminder of how much more competent both sides have gotten since then.
Sure.
In that the Iserlon is being manned by competent forces at this point.
Yep.
Who don't care about individual achievement and glory.
Yeah.
Which is such a gross concept in the areas of war. It's practically archaic.
Yep.
Now, the Empire does have a form of a meritocracy within their dictatorship thing they've got going on. And yes, a military force does, lend to people getting promotions based on their merit.
Yeah.
So
you want to reward competence, because when, you reward incompetence or don't reward competence, bad things happen.
Right, but I've seen so many more rewards and stuff given to people that basically handled a shittier situation than those that just kind of happened to win a decent kind of situation, if that makes sense. Like kind of the people where it's like, oh, you were wounded saving, 20 men from, near death.
Yeah,
you might not necessarily be able to lead as a fleet admiral commander, but I want to give you this very like specific thing to be like, you're now a sergeant now. Like you are definitely up from the,
Yeah, I don't know too much about how military stuff and things like that work, but I can imagine that, like in real life, there are the boring things, the boring successes, kind of, that might be because of the extreme competence of the person, where they made it look easy, or it might be just that they got dealt an easy hand, and
Sure. Yeah, and this was an instance where everyone on the Empire's side followed orders.
Yeah.
They did their part as best they thought they could.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part where Mueller had an idea that might have saved them the day. In fact, if Kempff's last words actually were, "I'm sorry, Mueller," which I want to go out on a limb and say it doesn't matter whether his last words were, this guy decided to tell Mueller that.
Right.
Because we saw, I think, Kempff actually die.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't say anything like that.
Yes, that's true.
So,
and with the "I'm sorry," is that I'm sorry that I failed you, or I'm sorry I got in your way.
Yep, I should have listened to you.
I should have listened to you because,
both work pretty well.
Yeah, both work pretty well.
Yeah. But here we are. The Empire is in tatters, running back. I liked that Mueller is showing signs of this is his introduction arc where he will be a bigger character later, because he showed signs of maybe a little bit of analysis paralysis. Like he was like, wait, but if Yang does this, and if he plans around our plan and we plan around his plan, is that, and then he basically went and wiped it all away and was like, wait, none of that matters. Let's just put a small fleet that we won't miss if it's gone, just out in the corridor on the Alliance side, because we're using the space station. Why do we need to care about the fact whether we have 12,000 ships at the front line or 9,000? It doesn't matter. Their fleet's not going to cross this threshold, because we'll take the big freaking gun and just go blah. And that plan is so simply genius, but it was something that if he had got caught up in the, wait, well, we have to do this, we have to plan on this trap and this thing, he might not have been able to do that. But he showed the capacity to just go, wait, no, let's focus, keep the main thing. Yep. And things might have been very different with regards to that.
One of the things that's really tough to do whenever you want to show that a side is very competent is to show that the other side is also very competent.
Yes, very true.
Especially showing a side that is competent even in their defeat.
Right.
And in this situation, I feel like it was very clearly laid out of what the mistakes were, and that it wasn't just because they were dumb, right? No. It was because one of them made a bad call, basically.
Yeah, there was a slight error in judgment there.
Yeah,
I think that there was another two things that need to be brought up. One, the actual maneuvering in the Isolon corridor with fleet battles is something that the Empire has not done, actually. They didn't do that usually. Because when they had Isolon, they just use Isolon as a keep your fleet away from us. But the Alliance has probably tried to come after Isolon so many times that they know the actual maneuvering capabilities within the Isolon corridor.
On that side specifically, yeah.
Well, right, but even then, if it's not a side or anything, it's with a fleet that big. Because the Empire would never send a fleet that big. They'd be like, why would we? We'll have just a small enough fleet to keep them from doing any kind of maneuver shenanigans.
Right.
And then they don't maneuver, they just are there in reserve, like in case we're ever needed.
Yep.
But no, we never needed them because Isolon is that badass.
Right. And maybe once in a while we pull an alliance and send out a massive fleet to go invade. Why not?
Right. I would love to know when the last time that actually happened was, because I'm guessing it wasn't actually that recent.
Given the fact that a bunch of the Empire was run by nobility, I would say there's a very good chance that wasn't really ever a thing that happened, because that doesn't... Their wealth personally might not benefit as much from that. Maybe there would be ways that they did, plunder and things like that, right?
Right.
But
the other one that I felt was like kind of a good little like tactic thing was that when Kempff was like, I'm not falling for that nonsense, I'm just going full steam ahead. That was the part though where if Yang didn't do tactics properly, the sheer numbers of their fleet versus the 4,000 would have been enough to destroy them.
Yep.
And it was lucky based on the fact that Julian had them sortie out in a way to where they would then be able to then go really quickly chase after the Empire's fleet.
And that there was specifically that environmental thing where he was then able to do the ring, and they weren't able to maneuver properly because of like the debris that was in other areas. Because otherwise, big deal if if they managed to catch up to you. They managed to catch up to you pretty good. So
yeah, I want to say also there's something that I think has been happening slowly but surely within the show. A lot of the older characters are dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's not on one side.
It's on both sides.
It's both sides.
Next generation.
And they very clearly have a consistent thing going on where the older generation is dying, the ones that have that last little bit of ties to the nobility. Mm-hmm. Even though Kempff was very much a military man. Like he's a big Chad. Like he had no, I would say, specific kind of corruption things about him, except maybe for the idea that his glory meant a little bit more to him than the actual state of the battle. Because when he sent that message back to Reinhardt, I'm sure if he had said, requesting reinforcements, come swiftly and immediately, I don't know, that might have changed something.
Oh, I definitely think it would have changed something. Mm-hmm. And it was something, and what I think was really good about what they did with Kempff is that it wasn't overt, right? But that decision that cost them the battle was no doubt because of his desire to have the glory and things like that, right? And that's what makes it insidious, because when we see it in people like in the Alliance or in some of the older Empire people, right, where it's like it's so obvious, right? It's like anybody could see this plain as day. Now, 150 years, it's easy for things to get whacked like that, and for no one to be either no one to notice or for it to be too deep set to change easily, right? But in this situation, it's something where this is a pretty upstanding, good dude,
right?
But he got just a little bit, a little bit tainted by the all that bit of corruption, right? That we see what happens when that takes root deep in other people, right? And this is just the barest little hints of it, and it cost them the whole battle.
Yeah, like it definitely could have changed everything if he basically ate his humble pie and was like, I require 10,000 ships as soon as possible. And he'd been like, no details, just I need reinforcements right now. And I'd be like, oh, good, we already have some on our way. And it's not going to be 10,000, but maybe here you go. Here's like 3,000 incoming there with your like smaller reserves. Like maybe they had a bunch of ships that were already on the way. And it's just a thing of where maybe they stopped at a certain point so that the Alliance would detect them, or I don't know. I don't think I think actually that was a great point they brought up multiple times, was the idea that they didn't have the capacity to do long range transmissions because of the two big ships sending all kinds of EM fields and That was a cool way to just kind of set the stakes to be a little bit higher. But y'all, that was a conclusion. Like it definitely is continuing into some other stuff, but it very much ends the idea of the Imperial military having just the capacity, if they wanted to just throw sheer numbers and mass at the Alliance and just win via blunt force,
If anything, that
efforts.
is one of the other things that I'm a little bit curious about, is like Reinhardt, just 6-1, there you go. Send in Geiersburg, see how that does, and have everyone else ready. Because this is the battle that, like, if they had won this,
it would have been
the war would have been over.
Yeah.
Like they would have just stomped through and crushed the Alliance.
Yeah, what would have happened, and it would have been awkward, was that the Alliance would have had to decide whether they wanted to go into total war and,
or just sue for peace.
Or just finally give up and surrender.
Right.
Because I think if Iserlohn was actually destroyed with minimal losses to the Imperial fleet, Yang could still actually kick the ass of the Empire fleet quite a bit.
I don't know.
And so here's my point, though, is that war is a battle of attrition and resources primarily, and human beings end up getting treated as resources because but I think more than one Alliance world would have suffered a fleet bombardment.
Oh man.
If that happened.
I-
And that would have been enough, I think, for the Alliance to be like, nope, screw it. I don't care what Yang could do, but I could totally see a thing where Yang, if that had happened, and this is all in theoretical, so this is kind of an ancillary discussion, but Yang would have specifically been like, oh yeah, give me the Alliance fleet. I'll meet the Imperials. And then he goes and takes the fleet and goes, we surrender. And has just a moment of like, yeah, I just, ask that, as a fellow man, you treat these people and you rule them with something more than the empire something more than what your empire is known for.
Right.
And if anything, that would have been a really like dark way to end the show, is basically the idea that the failures of just a few men and for big space stations and stuff led to the utter subjugation of humanity under a dictatorial meritocracy of sorts.
That's what's blowing me away, though. This is episode 34, right?
This is still the first third of the show.
First third of the show. Yeah. We could have that at episode 50.
We could,
like, and then it's not over.
It took like what, 7 episodes to set this arc up? 6 episodes,
something like that. Yeah. But like the wheels keep turning, and whether who is still around for that or not, whether it's Julian and Yang rising up against Reinhardt, whether it's Mittermeier and Ruhenthal rising up against Reinhardt, whatever, who knows, but like it goes on and on.
Yeah. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yes. Does it have 2 space stations duking it out in an amazingly epic display? No. But it is pretty awesome. And if you're interested, it's on Amazon. Link in the description down below.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see it there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.